Agata is an assistant instructional professor of Polish in UF Center for European Studies. In addition to Polish language courses, she teaches courses about nutrition, food and food customs, and food safety in the US and Europe. She was born in Warsaw and she began her education there. And I was intrigued to note that she holds degrees in two quite different fields. But in our conversation just before, she explained to me the many connections between the two fields. And they are, she has an MS in geology from the University of Warsaw, an MS in geoscience from the University of Arizona, and a Ph.D. in community nutrition from the University from Virginia Tech. She's also a registered dietitian nutritionist. Additionally, she has worked as a USAID in two USAID funded programs within Feed the Futures, one in Nepal and the other in Tajikistan. Before her work in Central Asia, she conducted service activities in Haiti in connection with faculty from the colleges of medicine and pharmacy at UF. So here she is to talk on this really fascinating topic.
Thank you for the introduction. And yes, I do believe in my professional and personal life that geology and nutrition do connect. And the reason why I'm talking about Poland and the vegetables and salt and influencer is part of that belief. So as Shayla mentioned, I'm teaching courses about food culture in Europe and food customs. And I actually, through teaching Polish, added knowledge to those topics. And by using resources in the Center for European Studies, I also added other countries to it. So this is, when people create the titles, they try to create something that will gather the audience and make it exciting. So the title is probably a bit of misleading because we are not just going to talk about the medieval times. We are going to actually move through Europe from the ancient times, from the times of Greeks roaming the most of Europe, and then end up in times that are absolutely recent to us and the quality of food that we are eating. So let's move to our, let's hope it moves. Yes, we are moving. So one thing I wanted to start with is what are we considering as Central Europe? While I'm teaching the courses about food customs, I read many books that actually try to define how Europe should be divided. And one of my favorite pictures I found that actually talks about how we can divide Europe and which is actually the Eastern Europe is published in a book by Dr. Norton, and it talks about history of Europe. So what I have done today, or how I decided to define Central Europe is by line 1 on his graphs, because this is a geographical division of Europe. And as you can see, it actually runs from the countries that often are not considered Central Europe. So when we talk about Greece, for example, we typically associate Greece with the Mediterranean area. But it is also one of these countries that is in Central Europe when we divided it geographically. When we talk about countries of former Warsaw Pact, like Poland, Czechs, or Slovaks, we don't think about them as Central Europeans. We think about them as Eastern Europeans. But geographically, they are actually the center. So following the first line, we are actually going to talk about Poland, Hungary, and Greece. Those are the Central European countries today for us. So I think I'm pressing the wrong button all the time. Or am I too far, possibly? Oh. Yes, this is the second. Perfect. Thank you so much. So to start our conversation and start with salt, I wanted to bring one of the more common and actually quite often used saying in Poland. So you probably heard about salt being one of these valuable substances that we discover, and the wealth of the household was measured in salt. How much salt they had, were they able to use it in everyday life or just for special occasions? And from that very fact stemmed the saying that you really don't spill the salt. It's too valuable to spill. So if you spill it, forget it. There will be a problem. Somebody will be unhappy and somebody will be scolded. There are other sayings about salt: salt bringing strength, salt bringing happiness, salt being used for health. But I think this was most appropriate to actually show salt as a substance that it's really valuable. Although right now we know that salt gets a bad rap too because it's responsible for high blood pressure. So where do I want to start the story about salt? There was a queen. Actually, she was a princess first before she became a queen. And she was Hungarian by birth. And over the years of centuries of history, there's actually many places where Polish and Hungarian history overlaps or it's connected. And it's mostly in times of kings and queens ruling Europe. And now in the very recent history, when we were together part of the Eastern Bloc. So the Queen, Princess Kinga, was promised to a Polish king. And she traveled to Poland. She married the king. She actually supposedly was a very pretty girl. And she was very thoughtful and empathic to her people. So her cult grew, and eventually she was recognized as a persona in the Catholic Church, which resulted in her becoming a saint. Saint Kinga is a protector of the miners of salt, and she is a patron saint recognized in Poland and in Lithuania. So how did it happen? After she became a queen of Poland, or right before when she became a promised bride to a Polish king, she was considering her new nation. She is coming to Poland. She's coming from a country that is relatively far away in those times. So we are looking at 13th century, so it was quite a bit of travel. And she wanted to bring something more than, her person and her dower to the king. She wanted to bring something to the nation. So she was consulting with her father, king, and she was consulting with all the elderly in the Kingdom of Hungary. And she decided that one of the best things she can bring, it will be something that people can use in everyday life. But how to bring salt to a different country? I mean, yes, you can set the trade routes and you can set the trains and the mules that will pull the wagons, but it's not a very effective way. So what Kinga did on the way to Poland, she stopped in Maramers. It was one of the first salt mine in Europe at that time, and she threw her engagement ring into a salt mine. And after that, she followed, farther north to Poland. And by the time when she was reaching Krakow, she asked one of the knights who was accompanying her to pull out some shovels. Knights can use shovels too, and start digging. And they were digging. They open a big hole in the ground, and they discovered that in that hole there is something very hard. It wasn't something that they were able to dig out with the shovel. So they brought their swords and they started chopping it. And one of the first things they chopped out of that hole was a brick of salt. And in that first brick of salt, there was Kinga's ring. So the story goes that Kinga brought the salt to Poland from Marasmus mines to Wieliczka salt mines. The funny thing is that when we look at geology of that area, actually the salt that it's was explored in Poland and salt that it's explored in Marasmus is of the very similar geological age. So it is probably something that was in geological times. The sedimentation of salt was happening probably at the same time when on both sides of the Carpathian Mountains. So with the big dots that are slightly bigger than the actual area, I mark where the Marasmus mines are today. So they are not in the Hungarian territory anymore. They are on the border between Ukraine and Romania. And that's approximate area at just slightly south of Krakow, where the Bochnia and Wieliczka mines are. And both mines, Wieliczka and Bochnia, were explored till relatively recently. They were explored until the 1990s, and they were in exploration since the times of Kinga, so since 13th century until this time. So this is those are pictures from Wieliczka mine, actually. Both salt mines are currently the UNESCO heritage sites. Anybody here who actually went to Poland and knows? Excellent. So have you been there? Okay, excellent. Yes. So this is one of the newer statues. So when you travel, I implore you to travel to Wieliczka and actually see for yourself. One of the largest and probably most impressive is the Chapel of Saint Kinga. Everything you see on that picture, except of the wooden structures that are supporting the top of the chamber, is salt. So all the stairway, banisters, flooring, sculptures, chandeliers, this is all salt. And that salt is, of course, different quality. So on the floor, you see that there's a bit of brown tint. The walls are definitely, so there's some polishing, of course, going on. The chandeliers are made of specific crystals that are particularly clear, and they don't have a lot of other minerals mixed to it. It's just, the two elements that make salt, chlorine and NaCl. And of course, there is a chamber where we can see the moment where the knight found Kinga's ring in the first part of salt that was explored in Wieliczka mine. Wieliczka salt mine has about 2 miles of tunnels that can be explored. The touristic part of the mine is opened down to about 400 feet. The mine itself was explored to about 1,000 feet. So there's a big chunk of mine that it's not open to tourist exploration, but there are still multiple chambers that you can walk through and watch. When I was a kid and I went first time to Wieliczka, I, of course, on my way through the mine, licked all the walls. So I would not recommend doing it, although salt, prevents bacteria from spreading, but it's still all the kids do it, so you probably want to do it. And so one part of Velička salt mine is the museum and the historical chambers that were turned into places to actually look at how the exploration was done in the past, how it was done in the actual very recent past. But but there is also a lot of entertainment that it's going in Velička. And actually, that to me, it was also new because I didn't know that you can take a balloon and fly through the mine, actually. You can have a wedding there. You can have a conference. There is a sanatorium for people who have problems with the different kind of breathing disease, like, maybe somebody who is recovering from pneumonia. They can stay there for 3-4 weeks and actually breathe the air that it's healing the lungs. So I think if we have enough resources, I would recommend actually having a party there. It looks gorgeous. So this is one story from the ancient times that actually translates to our entertainment of today. And I mentioned at the beginning that salt has a bad rap because it increases blood pressure. But there's actually a reason why salt was so valued over the centuries, why it was the amount of salt that the household could use was something that was adding to its prosperity. So for the human body, as you can see, salt has multiple uses, or it's effective in multiple places. So probably the ones that we really want to remember about is that we need salt for the functioning of muscles, and we need salt for functioning of brain cells. So even people who have to sort of control how much sodium they eat on the everyday basis, they shouldn't avoid it completely. And there is, of course, a downside. If we eliminate completely salt from everything we are eating, there we will feel pretty much like our energy was sucked out of us. Fortunately and unfortunately, limiting sodium in the diet, it's extremely difficult right now because it's added to almost anything we are eating. If we are eating any processed food, it will be added because salt has also amazing qualities of actually protecting the food we are eating. So because it kills the bacteria, it does not allow them to propagate. It's one of preservatives. There are also, when we make bread, if we will not add salt to the dough, the yeast will take over. They will explode actually whatever we are making. So we need to add a little bit of salt to stop the yeast from spreading without any limitations. Salt will make our red colors in food more vibrant. They will actually be red, not just those like pale washout pinks. And unfortunately, salt also gives flavor to our food. So the fat carries the flavor, but salt enhances that flavor. So there is a reason why salt is actually something that was prized since the times of kings and queens. So that was Saint Kinga, but there was another queen in history of Poland who actually added quite a bit to Polish cuisine, or at least that's how the legend goes. So a little bit later, as you can see, in 15th and 16th century, that's when Bonna Sforza was a queen of Poland. She was Italian, or what we know as Italy right now. And apparently she was absolutely a gorgeous woman, very proud, raised in the family where women was as valued as men. Surprise, surprise. Even, so many centuries ago. When she married the Polish king, she came with a lot of wealth, but similar to Kinga, she was progressive in a way that it wasn't just the king she was going to marry, she was marrying a nation. So to show her appreciation for her new home, for her new nation, she brought with her a lot of vegetables. And those vegetables, the one that are listed here, are called, so włoszczyzna is a Polish word that can be translated into English, Italianese. So things that were known from Italy that we actually accept in our cuisine. So this is a legend, but why is this legend important? So when we actually look at the nutrients that the vegetables that Bonna brought with her, possibly, allegedly with her, they add actually a lot of vitamins and minerals to Polish diet. Those minerals and vitamins were probably already present in the diet of Slavs, from Vistula area. But as we know, all humans like variety. So if we can add different new things to the diet, we are probably much more likely to have much more diversity. And you may also know about phytochemicals. They didn't know about phytochemicals at that time, but when we are eating colors, when we are eating fragrances, when we are eating skins, we are also consuming substances that are not necessarily nutrients, but we already know that they have positive health effects on us. So eating purples, eating reds, eating even whites actually add things to our diet that are benefiting our health. So we talk about two queens of Poland, and they both added value to the Polish cuisine. But what history says about it? So probably sometimes during the times of Queen Kinga in the 13th century, the technology of mining developed to the point that it spread across Europe. And probably the mining happened about the same time as Kinga came to Poland. And it is also possible that she actually was responsible in a way that she brought those miners. She actually brought the technology to Poland of mining. Queen Bonna, on the other hand, and the story of the fruits and vegetables probably has even less into actual historical facts, because most likely those vegetables were known earlier, so not in the 15th and 16th century, but most likely in 10th century, because when they are exploring the monastery of Benedictines in area of Poland, they can already find remains of something that looked like carrot. So they were probably actually, those vegetables were probably in Poland even starting in 10th century when Poland actually became a country. But what Bonna did, she actually propagated it. It's when I added the title of influencers, that's what the ruling dynasties were in Europe at that time. They were the one who were, showing how to use different things. And one of the things that Bonna was actually doing, she was very open to entertaining all the nobility, and not only, and she was inviting them to dinners. And at those dinners, she served vegetable dishes. She, not only meat, which was very big, in the northern countries, but there were vegetables served. And those were actually, that's how she contributed to actually increasing the use of vegetables, not only at court, but at all the other households. So she was responsible for more for influencing the taste than actually bringing those vegetables to Poland. So from talking about veggies, let's talk about something sweet. And we are also moving farther south. So from Poland, we'll move to Hungary now, another one of those countries along the line that divides Europe into halves. And in Europe, most of the sugar is actually made, or traditional was made from sugar beets, not from sugar canes. But the first sugars that actually were used in Europe probably was actually sugar cane, not sugar beets, because they came from farther east where sugar beets are less popular. And they traveled, surprisingly, they traveled to Europe with people who moved quite a bit through Europe at that time, which were crusaders. So when they were, moving east, they were bringing with them parts of Northern and Western European culture. When they're coming back home, they were bringing things that were popular out, in the Central and Southern Asia. And at some point, they started bringing sugar too. Sugar that was produced in Europe really did not become very popular till after the Industrial Revolution, because that's when we actually had equipment to process the sugar beets and make enough sugar for everybody to try it out. And that's pretty much when we are looking at the development of confectionaries in Europe. And there are two very interesting cakes that actually were created in Hungary at the times when sugar became popular. So one of those cakes is linked with the love story and a bit of a scandal too. So Clara Ward Chimney was a daughter of very influential American businessman. And she became, in a way, a princess, a little queen, marrying a Belgian prince. But probably that marriage wasn't necessarily a love match. It was probably, a matter of convenience. Maybe somebody wanted to have a title in the family and somebody else needed money in their coffers. But unfortunately, those matches not always last. And in this case, it didn't last because Clara met Rigoyanci. Rigoyanci was this flamboyant musician who swept her off her feet and carried her away from her husband. And they lived throughout Europe dancing and singing, not always in agreement. Apparently, their relation were known for being very dynamic. But what resulted from that romance, and we are not sure who actually was creating that cake. In Hungarian confectionaries were or added to their list a Rigoyanci cake, and that cake was either created for Clara, and one of the ways Rigo actually demonstrated his love, that he asked unknown, unfortunately, baker to create the cake, or the other story says that he created that cake himself. So next time when you're in Budapest, definitely try it. It's a very rich cake, and it may have, as you can see in those pictures, it may have slight variation in layers that are being added, but those layers that of the cream or the jam, they are always plastered between two very rich layers of chocolate cake. Another story is, and another cake is also related to nobility of Hungary. Actually, the family of Esterházy is still alive, although they don't draw any royalties from that cake anymore. So this may have been one of the first, probably one of three gluten-free cakes that were created in Europe. Sometimes the layer of the cake are made with almonds. So instead of flour, they are using either almond flour or walnut flour. It sort of depends on the time of the year or area of Hungary. There are places where walnuts or almonds or hazelnuts are more popular, and that will change the ingredient. But all the others typically stay as they are. So another delicacy from Hungary and a story. This more of the famous family than actual romance. And the last part of that, travel through Central Europe is story of olive or olive oil, actually. And there are most likely two possible explanations how the Greek became known for the olive trees. And one of the story, of course, that's the time when the gods roamed the earth. So we are way before the kings and queens. And one of possible explanations why we have olive oil and they have olive trees is thanks to three sisters or daughters of the king Ainus of Delos. He was one of those kids who came to be because a god or a goddess decided that the human partner is much more desirable than their Olympian partner. So he had some blood of gods in him. And his daughters, after they were born, they actually had the power of making any one of those three cultivates to grow healthy and to produce large crops. So one of the daughters was responsible for all the grain and seeds. One of them was responsible for wine, and the third one was responsible for oil. So thanks to the three sisters, the Greek cuisine was actually enriched by the good quality of seeds, good quality of wine, although we really don't know Greek for good wine, and excellent olive oil. The other story says that, again, the olive oil is on earth thanks to the Olympic gods, but it was actually a conflict between Athena and Poseidon. So at that time, the province of Attica didn't have any city, or didn't have any city that was named. And Athena and Poseidon were vain enough that they wanted to have a city named after them. So they talked to the people of Attica and they said, if either one of them can create something that can be famous through the centuries, throughout the time, then that city will be named after that. And Zeus was supposed to be the one who decided whose gift was better. So what Poseidon did, he drew his trident, and from that trident there grew this beautiful steed. It was the largest, the strongest, the most fierce steed that the Attican people ever saw. But what they can do with one horse? Not much. So Athena, it's a horse. Sorry for my accent. Sometimes I say things that are harder to understand. So what Athena did was she took her spear and she pierced the rock, and from that rock sprang a tree. And that tree bore olives, and the olives could be made into many different ingredients that could be added to, take care of the skin. And the tree by itself gave shades where people could rest. And the olives were giving people energy and resistance to the disease. So we know that olive oil, when we look at olive oil today, we know that oil gives us energy because every gram of fat provides us with 9 calories of energy, kilocalories of energy. So eating olives is, almost like taking a spoonful of olive oil. It provides a lot of energy. It also has those special type of fats that are taking care of our heart and skin and hair and so forth. So the tree was definitely something that Athenians and Zeus deemed to be a better gift. So that's how the Athens was named, after the goddess of Athena and after her excellent gift of olive tree. So I think this was one of my biggest surprises. It's sort of obvious, but I found that the name for olive oil to be translated into fruit juice was actually it's a bit of the joke, but it's true. I mean, we squeeze oranges to have orange juice, so we squeeze olives and we have olive juice, which is olive oil, of course. So olive oil, I'm sure when you shop for olive oil, you try to make a decision to buy something that it's fragrant and tastes good and have a nice color. But actually, all those qualities are something that it's observed at the international market, because the color, the fragrance, the chemical composition of olive oil changes its value and changes its properties, changes how it reacts with our health. So, for example, one of the things that we notice first about olive oil is a color. And the best color is achieved when the balance between the orange coloring, which are carotenoids, and chlorophyll, which is green, is about 1:1. That's when we get the richest color. If we have more carotenoids, then the olive oil will be more orange. If we have more chlorophyll, it will be slightly greener. Sometimes we are led to believe that if it's greener, it's better. It's not always the case, because maybe the olives weren't really ripe, and what we are getting is something that, or somebody just added green color to it. So what we want to actually do is, whenever we are purchasing olive oil, is good to look if that olive was judged by the international standards. And the difference between cost and difference between the naming of the extra virgin olive oil or virgin olive oil is in the quality of olives that were used. So when we are looking at extra virgin olive oil, the fruit was of the highest quality, and there was no rotten pieces in it. There was no wood that was added by accident, because the amount of free oils, the oils that actually already disintegrated over time, is the smallest. When we are looking at the virgin olive oil, not extra virgin, that deterioration of fats that are making the oil is slightly greater. It's still very high quality, but it's not as fresh and of such good quality as when we are picking extra virgin olive oil. So actually, the names have a meaning in the quality. They can be translated, the name can be translated into quality of oil we are getting. And of course, it's better to get the oil that is sold in the dark containers or in translucent or not translucent containers, because the light will deteriorate the oil. It will make it age faster. So there's some logic behind the pricing and the naming of the oils we are purchasing. And that will conclude my presentation. So hopefully it's not just about Europe, but something that you can use in everyday life, I trust. And if you have any questions, thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Agatha, for that very interesting talk. Every time after this, when I shake the salt shaker, I'm going to be thinking of Queen Kinga, I think.
Yes.
Okay, do I question?
Thank you. That was very interesting. I'm just curious, in Europe, were there plant-based oils before olive oil, or were they all?
So rapeseed oil, it was actually something that was known before. It's canola, what we know here as canola. It's a plant that grew in Europe in the times before, or it was a cultivar, a plant that was cultivated before the olive oil was spread. So olive oil spread during the Roman Empire pretty much the same way how wine spread. So at that very first slide, when I was showing you how Europe can be divided, one of the lines also show how far the wine or how wine can divide Europe. So similar division was for olive oil.
Other questions?
Your last question inspired me to ask this. How about different kinds of salts that are available today? I get something at a health food store, but I don't know if they sell it at other places, Mediterranean salt. But I know like there's kosher salt and this and that salt. Do you have any observations on these, or how they were invented or produced?
So a lot of salt market is marketing. However, if you are using, the best value or the strongest impact of salt on our health is from just pure salt. So it's from those two elements that make salt, Na and Cl, so chloride and sodium. But if you get a salt that is slightly darker in color, so for example, if you remember the images from Wieliczka, the walls were pretty dark gray. So that dark gray color is not dirt, it's other minerals that are mixed into the salt. And they, we get our minerals from soil. So for example, if we have soil that is depleted in magnesium, that means that the plants that grow on the soil, they are also depleted in magnesium. So our diet will be missing that mineral. If we have salt that has other minerals mixed into it, so it's pink or it's gray, that means that there are other minerals that are part of that crystal. Hopefully, everything that we get on the market is things that are not toxic to humans, but they have to be tested in a way. So if we get salt straight from Wieliczka, the mine was used for so many centuries that all the exploration channels were tested to have only minerals that are not toxic to humans. But if we get salts from places that we are not sure about it, we really don't know what minerals can be part of that crystal. So I'm not sure what is the Mediterranean salt, I'm guessing it's probably just pure salt with some Mediterranean herbs mixed to it. So you can have that and pay extra for it, or you can get salt and bunch of herbs that you like and just add to the mix. So it's the same with Himalayan salt, or with kosher salt is just larger crystals. So remember from school those experiment when you had the solution of water and salt and you hang the string on it above it, and it sort of salt crystallize, and if there was a long time for that salt to crystallize, the crystals grew larger. If you did it in the last moment and you had like 2 days before the project was due, the crystals were very small. So that's what kosher salt is. They are just larger crystals that had time to grow. So it's, really the value of salt is in the sodium and chloride for our body and for our food. All the other things is just, what's the cherry on the top? I think that's the saying. So if it's a source that you can trust, go ahead and try different flavors of salt. Maybe you have a mineral that you add to your diet, that you are missing for whatever reason. But if you have to pay twice for it, I don't know. So
Thank you so much. Here's another question up front.
Is there more nutritional value in sea salt? Is sea salt actually evaporated from ocean water or salt water
yes, so
versus mined salt, sea salt versus?
I wouldn't say that. So it's if the salt is evaporated, so whatever was in that solution will stay in the salt. I went to where was it? I was somewhere in tropical place, and they actually had a salt pans where they were evaporating sea salt. That salt was very pink, and the flamingos that were next door, they were also very pink. So there was probably some algae in that salt. The salt that we buy in the store is mostly from evaporation. So it's very white. So somehow they actually clear the salt from all the particles that may have made it. If you get a salt from salt mine and it's not white, it's this similar things that I just talked about. If it's not completely white, it has something added. So I think the final product can be just sodium and chloride, or it can have other things mixed in, and the source may not make any difference what you get in the store. It's more of what is that final product. Not the difference between if it's come from the sea or comes from the mine may not make any difference. Sure.
This is similar to the question I was going to ask about the pollution in sea salt. There's talk about with our oceans being polluted that perhaps we are using that as salt also.
So I'm sure you heard about microplastics. And unfortunately, microplastics are in everything we are eating. The last estimates are that we are eating about in over the week, we are probably eating as much plastic as it takes to make a credit card. So it's quite a bit. And oceans are polluted with microplastics. Fish are incorporating microplastics into their tissue. We're eating that fish. If we eat anything that is in the plastic containers, there are probably microplastics in what we are eating. So the same pollutants will be in salt, and it may be from production, or it may be from packaging, or it may be even, for example, if you take a salt with the plastic spoon, salt is coarse. So it's possible that it will actually, some of that plastic will be wrapped on the coarse grains of salt when you're adding it to, to water, to salt, to your eggs. So unfortunately, pollutants are part of our life. We are continuously using ingredients from our environment that are being polluted. So the main thing is how harmful are those pollutants. So we know that eating a large fish has a higher chance of us consuming mercury. Thank you, mercury. Eating sardines, probably a smaller chance of eating mercury. Arsenic. So I have an Italian friend who continuously eats the pits of apricots and peaches. And he's laughing that there's no way his wife can, kill him now because he has arsenic in his system. So it's very personal choice in a way, but unfortunately we have to, consciously agree with the fact that we live in polluted environment and whatever we are eating is also polluted. So it's just, everyday truth in a way.
I think one more question.
I know one. What about iodine and iodized salt?
So iodine is more likely to be in sea salt, or it can be added. So iodine, but there is the small print to it. Iodine, when we put salt with iodine into a boiling water, iodine in a way evaporates from it. It's the action of heating up the water, and the water vapor actually takes out the iodine from salt. So what is recommended, if you use iodine particularly to improve your diet, or salt with iodine, if you are salting potatoes, for example, when they are being boiled, add it at the very last moment, or add it on the plate only. So, and iodine is one of those elements that we need in such a tiny quantities that it's very difficult to measure if we have enough of it. So if you are using iodine every day or salt with iodine every day, you probably have enough. And if you don't have enough iodine, then you probably will see it in your health because your thyroid gland will stop working as well as it's working. So it's definitely good if we use the salt on an everyday basis. It's probably good to use iodine, because if we have too much of it, our body will get rid of it. If we don't have enough, we will replace it. So, but it's like, then how do you use that salt with iodine? Do you use it for cooking, where iodine can actually escape? Or are you using it in cold dishes where that iodine will actually stay and you will eat it? So did I answer? Thank you.
Agatha, thank you ever so much. We really enjoyed this. And I think, do you have a few moments if folks would like to talk to you after?
Of course,
thank you.
I can stay for a few more minutes. Thank you so much.